There it is. He timed it right.
Counting to explode with the left. Oh, and that right, but Davis took off some of the steam of the punch, but still.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Carolyn Dubois is open to a Turhan unification bout if Baumgartner snubs Summer Showdown, which she already has. Dubois, who also holds the WBC title, added the WBO belt to her collection when she beat Terry Harpier via UD at Kensington Olympia on Easter Sunday to take another step towards becoming undisputed. However, the Southpaw has made no secret of her desire to welcome the ring's junior lightweight champion to 135 after she outworked Bomi Shin to retain her titles with a 10-round points win Friday in New York. Dubois would be willing to take a trip to America defending her belts against the 31-year-old Alicia Baumgartner. Despite that, Dubois expects Baumgartner to take a different route and has identified a contingency plan. Big punching IBF champion of Turkey, Elif Nur Turan, dubbed the Golden Turk. Dubois said, "I don't want to be involved in any other fight that isn't a unification or a big fight. Right now, I think the most realistic would be Turan next. She's the one that's available and free, also the most exciting one." The 30-year-old from Turkey produced one of the most stunning performances of 2025 when dethroning former champion and Olympian Beatriz Ferreira in Monte Carlo. The Brazilian had been odds-on to retain her title, but was blitzed by the challenger inside 5 rounds. Now, what might get in the way of a unification between her and Carolyn are preliminary rumblings about Elif Nur Turan fighting in her native Turkey. I heard something or other about that not but a few weeks ago, and if that rumor sticks, she won't be available for Carolyn. But Carolyn added, "It's a dangerous but very exciting fight. That's all I want to give to the fans. Exciting fights. Being involved in the best and biggest fights that I can possibly make. Hopefully Turan and myself can get it on, and it's easy and simple. It's just about where, when, and on what card." Elif Nur Turan is promoted by Matchroom, who I don't think would be an obstacle if the people at MVP are serious about making that fight and paying for it. Matchroom won't stand in the way. As far as her victory over Terry Harper, the 25-year-old Londoner Dubois was supported ringside by her close friend Claressa Shields. The self-styled GWOAT had headed to London following her trip to Cardiff, where she watched her potential next opponent, Lauren Price, successfully defend her Ring Magazine, IBF, WBC, and WBA welterweight baubles against Stephanie Pinheiro Aquino. Now Dubois has suggested that her unification with Nur Turan could land on their undercard should the two sides agree to a deal for a 2026 fight. She said, "If Claressa Shields is fighting Lauren Price next, I would love to fight on her undercard. I'm sure that's something that can happen." I'm skeptical, because a fight between Claressa and Lauren would be a co-promotional situation between Salida Promotions and Boxer, neither of which I think can afford to also have Carolyn Dubois on the undercard. It was different when Boxer had Sky Sports backing them, that media giant. On BBC, they are not getting the same budget that they used to. The Ring Magazine understands that talks regarding the clash between Shields and Price are progressing well, and it is likely that both will box one more time before meeting in a cross-promotion between Salida and Boxer before the end of this year. So maybe what Claressa's gonna do now is make her way down to the middleweight division, hopefully by the summer, to take on unified champion Kay Scott, who is also promoted by Dimitri Salida. She goes down the middle, she beats Kay Scott, and suddenly, her and Lauren Price have titles to fight for, because currently, neither of them have any titles at 160. That comes first. What comes second? The hard part, making the fight between Claressa and Lauren that I think is going to take more money than Boxer has or than Dimitri Salida has. I don't think you're going to get Lauren on a plane to fly to America for peanuts on the dollar, and the same applies to Claressa. I don't think she's going to go to the UK for bottles of Avion water and airline peanuts. I'm skeptical as to whether or not the fight between Claressa and Lauren will happen, and thus, I'm skeptical, even more skeptical, that Carolyn would fight on their undercard. If anything, Boxer would have their own fighters on the undercard, or Dimitri Salita, not MVPs. I understand that Carolyn Dubois and Clarissa Shields are close, but this is a business, and both promotional outfits making the fight have their own fighters to accommodate that they wouldn't need to also accommodate an MVP fighter. To make the fight with Elif Nur Turhan, I think it falls on MVP more than anybody, more even than Matchroom, because I can't see Carolyn Dubois crossing over to the Matchroom side of things for that fight. In all likelihood, it'll be Elif Nur Turhan that has to cross the street. And in doing so, and making that fight, Carolyn would further endear herself to the boxing community at large, urging Alicia Baumgartner to face her, on the premise that she would be doing what Alicia asked her to do, removing those excuses. She's unifying her division. When she's done, what would the excuse be then? And doing so against a dangerous opponent who knocked out an Olympian like Carolyn is an Olympian to become a world champion herself. Elif Nur Turhan is no joke. She's no finesse fighter. She damn sure ain't no pushover either. Skeptical as to whether or not that fight happens next, but so long as it happens in this calendar year, it would satisfy what the fans want and what Alicia Baumgartner asked Carolyn to do. Men's super bantamweight news, as expected, 55,000 fans will fill a sold-out Tokyo Dome in Japan for Naoya Inoue versus Junto Nakatani. It will be the biggest fight in Japanese boxing history. Running parallel to this are the ticket sales for Benavidez versus Zerto that have yet to sell out, and at a smaller venue. Now that potato-faced kid Javi keeps trying to convince people that David Benavidez is now the face of boxing on the premise that he's fighting on Cinco de Mayo weekend, but he's not selling out. I mean, there are still tickets on sale. The night of, you're telling me that they're going to fill that place up to capacity? We'll see. Because even if they do, it's not the gate receipts where the money is. It's at the box office. It's in the pay-per-view sales. And if you're fighting Cinco de Mayo weekend in the absence of Canelo Alvarez, who has a baseline of at least 500,000 pay-per-view buys, irrespective of who he fights, if you can't match that number, then you're not the face of anything. Not if you can't match Canelo Alvarez's numbers against Joe Blow's and Hammond Eggers, and certainly not when Naoya Inoue's fight at a much bigger venue than yours has already sold out. 55,000 people. More specifically, 55,000 Japanese, and yet there are still boxing fans here in America that think that's something to sneeze at when normally bantamweights and super bantamweights don't make anywhere near the money that Inoue has been making. That's a testament to his star power. King of the lower weights, even Chocolatito at the peak of his powers in his heyday wasn't making anywhere near the money that Inoue is generating with his fights, and generating it organically. He's not one of these fighters that's just being overpaid by Turkey LL Sheik. He's only boxed for him once. All on his own, off his own marquee value, he has fast become one of the top 5 earning boxers in the sport of boxing, and all organically. It's his adoring public that have gotten him there. That's the way it's supposed to be. And there are still those within the American boxing space that wish to marginalize his contribution to the sport today, jealous that no American-born fighter is moving numbers like this guy is moving numbers, and so they shade him, berate him. Because he didn't base himself out of America, because he doesn't subject himself to their criticisms and their unrealistic standards. The American boxing space has never been ideal for fighters at the lower weights, those super flys and bantams, super bantams. The Americans have never had an appetite for those divisions, so it would be nonsensical for Inoue to base himself away from his own adoring public, to subject himself to the jeers of the Americans. For what? To satisfy some manufactured rite of passage based on previous eras of boxing when most of the big money was in the United States. That's not the case anymore, and I've been saying that for years. I mean, if a homegrown fighter in David Benavidez has yet to sell out with what is the biggest fight of his career, and he's not likely to sell very many pay-per-views with it, what chance does a Japanese import have in the United States? Where would Inoue versus Nakatani be a bigger fight? In Japan or in the United States? It's silly. It's childish. Like that potato head kid Javi, saying that David Benavidez is now the face of boxing. Not if there's another fighter out there generating more interest and more money with his fights than David is with his. How do you think he ended up being in the top 5 earning boxers in the sport of boxing, all ahead of David Benavidez? David isn't even on that list. But he's supposed to be the face of boxing. I genuinely think there's something wrong with that Javi guy. Like, he's retarded or something. He doesn't think about what he says. Because to be the face of boxing, you generally have to be the top earning boxer in the sport. Like Oscar De La Hoya was for a period, then Floyd Mayweather after him, then Canelo Alvarez after him. Not because the boxing fans are counting the boxers as money, but because the boxers as money is a testament to their drawing power and the interest they generate with their fights. And David just doesn't generate enough interest. Why do you think he has to name drop Canelo Alvarez every fight that he has? Because if he doesn't, nobody's really interested. He's been on pay-per-view 4 times. Name me one David Benavidez fight that brought in at least 500,000 buys. You can't. Now, why these two names, separated by so much weight, might be tied together is because they're fighting the same day. Inoue's fight takes place the morning of David Benavidez's fight with Zurdo Ramirez. They're both happening that same weekend, but one fight is clearly bigger than the other. One fight is for undisputed, and the other one isn't. One fight sets a historical precedent as the biggest fight that region of the world would have ever seen, and the other fight is just another fight. Just another fight on the night. Not even a bad one, but nowhere near as big as Inoue versus Nakatani. By every quantifiable metric that you gauge how big a fight is, Inoue versus Nakatani is many times bigger than Benavidez versus Zurdo. The only thing bigger about David's fight that same weekend is his midsection.
He's fat.
Oh yeah, they're bigger men, bigger in that sense, but they don't have the bigger fight, which is unusual. Because bantamweights and super bantamweights generally don't generate this much interest, and that's what makes Inoue unique. In men's junior middleweight news, Sebastian Fundora fails to impress Jaron Ennis ahead of his upcoming fight with Xander Zayas. Boots says he's just tall. Because of Fundora's height, 6 feet 6 inches, most believe he's a difficult fighter to deal with, but for Ennis, there's nothing that really stands out. He's just tall. Ennis told the ring while laughing, "I don't watch him, but from the little stuff that I've been seeing, he's just a tall pressure fighter." The tall pressure fighter annihilated Keith Thurman a few weeks ago in Las Vegas in just 6 rounds. The former unified welterweight champion was bleeding profusely while trying to find a way to land a meaningful shot on Fundora. The reason he couldn't, it's because of what Jaron Ennis said. It's because Sebastian Fundora is so tall. Though to simply categorize him as a tall pressure fighter, Sebastian is a little bit more than that, at least now. Because he's not holding his feet anymore, making himself a stationary target, and he's not crashing the pocket, collapsing the pocket to bang in the booth. He's using that height. He's using that length. He's using his jab. Solving that puzzle has been practically impossible for most as of late. However, according to Ennis, there's a blueprint to beating someone like Fundora. With taller guys, you've got to stay in their chest, Ennis said. You've got to dog them out. Don't let them get any room to breathe. Basically, at some point, Fundora, the ring's number 2 ranked junior middleweight and current WBC champion, may show Ennis what he's all about. But for now, Team Fundora is attempting to land a unification bout against IBF champion Josh Kelly. Ennis, in the meantime, is getting ready to face the WBA and WBO junior middleweight champion Xander Zayas. Their matchup is set for June 27th at Brooklyn's Barclays Center, live on DAZN. Zayas and Ennis are the ring's number 3 and number 5 ranked junior middleweights. By and large, the division houses some of boxing's biggest names, from former champions such as Jermell Charlo and Errol Spence Jr. to current champions and highly ranked contenders like Sebastian Fundora and Virgil Ortiz. Still, Ennis believes that if his fellow junior middleweights want to make names for themselves and get paid handsomely for it, they have to fight him. "I feel like everybody's got to come through me, regardless in this division," Ennis said. "I'm the cash cow of this division. If anybody wants to fight, they're going to make the most money fighting me. I'm the cash cow of this division, and I'm the best."
in this division.
We discussed this latest set of comments from Jaron Ennis in a previous video, and then like now, I don't think he's the best at 154. He has to prove that, and he's not yet the cash cow of this division, but he could be if he beats Zender. I feel like that fight, that's what's gonna crown who the cash cow of these divisions is. Not just the junior middleweight division, but middleweight as well, since nobody up there now seems to move the needle. Not Arislandi Lara, not Yanni Beck or Denzel Bentley, not nobody. So you could argue that the winner of Zayas versus Boots would effectively become the cash cow anywhere in between 154 and 160. And the stuff that he said about Sebastian? What about that? What, that he's just a tall guy? In many ways he is, but it's an oversimplification that's easy to understand, though quite difficult to work around. It is true that Sebastian Fundora is not some remarkable fighter with the best technique or the best X's and O's, the best variety of punches, but when you're that much taller than your opponents, you don't really need to be remarkable. So long as you can do a few things well, the basics, you can make yourself a very difficult assignment for everybody in front of you, Jaron Ennis included. So it is true, he is just tall, but being that tall makes him dangerous. Supposed to be negotiating a unification match between Sebastian and Josh Kelly, and we'll see if that happens, because the story is, it's not Samson Lukowicz negotiating that fight, it's Louis de Cubas. Because it's not Samson who normally negotiates on Sebastian's behalf, there's less chance of him mucking things up, fucking things up. Fight stands a much better chance of happening if it's not Samson Lukowicz at the negotiation table. And for Sebastian Fundora, who's already headlined pay-per-views 2 times and has yet to bring in robust numbers, he's never going to if he doesn't step it up. Nobody bought that Keith Thurman fight, and we all know it. And nobody bought the first Tim Tszyu fight either, where he was a late replacement. For what it's worth, Sebastian Fundora has proven himself an entertaining fighter in his own right. I've never seen a boring Sebastian Fundora fight, but he by himself doing what he's been doing is not box office, and he's not gonna be unless he steps it up. Josh Kelly unification match is just what the doctor ordered. It affords Sebastian the chance to go international in what is a very winnable fight, at the risk of counting Josh Kelly out once again, like I did ahead of the Bakram Murtazalia fight. I just don't see how he can win against Sebastian doing what he normally does, what he did in the Murtazalia fight, beating those feet, staying on the outside, working off the counter. This guy's too fucking tall and too long for any of that shit to work. Play him from the outside, you're a sitting duck because he doesn't need to be close to you to hit you. The only way to get to him is to play him close to the chest, slip under and around the straight punches, and work him from the inside out. I'm not confident that Josh Kelly can make that adjustment. I don't think he's built for that kind of fight. Sebastian wins. And that is all the more reason for Sebastian to go through with this fight, even if it requires him to get on a plane and go over to Sunderland and fight Josh Kelly over there. I like his chances so much in that fight that I think he should do it. Make that sacrifice. You can stop this guy. It's been stopped before by a much smaller guy than you. You often hear about how deep the junior middleweight division is, but it counts for nothing if these boys don't fight each other. Hopefully Sebastian and Josh get it on.